to remember that Sinwar, and this is the information that was exposed. The Sinwar is on the run, constantly moving from place to place. In such a situation, it's very difficult to conduct ongoing regular communication. In addition to that, Sinwar is enormously cautious. He's not using any kind of electronic signal-based communication, phones and cell phones and so on and so on. And so he is basically is dependent upon some sort of like messengers that are carrying back information out. And there is also some limit in that regard. So in the end of the day, it's very possible, indeed, the ability of Sinwar to conduct an ongoing, constant communication with its colleagues outside of Gaza or inside of Gaza, that ability is to a large extent compromised. Would not be surprised if the Israeli intelligence knows where Yahya Sinwar is. Well, as I said before, and it was accurate, that was the period of time where we saw the first phase of this war. Now Israel is moved to the second phase, or even now to the third phase of this war, where Israel is now basing its military presence in Gaza Strip, and now kind of like creating those enclaves where Israel is now operating relatively in a less massive power in comparison to the first phase, but in much more pinpoint chirurgical style operation in different parts of Gaza Strip. And many of those operations are being conducted based upon an immediate intelligence that is being extracted on the ground by the Israeli forces, as I mentioned before. So I think that what we see right now is that we are beyond the major step of the major phase of the first part of the war, where there was a huge use of power, military power, and now we see this much more point the attacks of Israeli special units on the ground in Gaza Strip. Parallel to that, we see that the idea of the Israeli Defense Forces is creating military strongholds in Gaza Strip to start secure and monitor the movement inside Gaza Strip. And in parallel to that also, I think that we start to see the first early seeds of creation of some sort of like, for the time being, a sort of a civil administration in Gaza Strip that will start taking care of the everyday life needs of the people. And in that context, the IDF also has a very significant role. The issue is not necessarily about Hamas to remain military power. Look, from a military perspective, I think it's very clear that Hamas sustained a very significant blow. The Israeli Defense Forces reports that they have killed something like 14,000 Hamas militants and thousands others were injured. Roughly speaking, Israel says we have been dismantling Hamas military spy. Some 20 out of 24 Hamas battalions have been dismantled. So from a military perspective, yes, Hamas still have people on the ground and, they are still hiding or they're still trying to move from one place to another, but they cease to operate as an organized structure units as they used to be before the war. But the issue of the ceasefire in Hamas perspective, I think it's important to understand that Hamas is desperately looking for some sort of an achievement to justify the war that he has launched, because there is a lot of Arab criticism of Hamas, including, of course, the Palestinian street. There is a lot of anger with Hamas for the disaster it has inflicted on people of Gaza, his own brothers and sisters. And so Hamas is trying to find some sort of like an achievement. The only achievement that Hamas could somehow deliver is the issue of releasing Palestinian prisoners. And to that extent, Hamas needs to exhaust as much as possible the issue of the Israeli hostages that Hamas has in its possession. They'll say themselves, they don't care about their brothers and sisters. Musa Abu Marzouq, one of Hamas senior leaders, says in an open interview, he was criticized for the fact that Hamas was building these tunnels. And the criticism in the Arab world of Hamas is like, you build these huge tunnels for Hamas, but you didn't build even one shelter to your brothers and sisters in Gaza. And Musa Abu Marzouq, one of the Hamas leaders, says, the tunnels are for the people of Hamas, not for the people of Gaza. We don't care about the people of Gaza. Instead, the people of Gaza is the one should take care of them. So understand that we are looking here at a very distorted government of Hamas, which, to the best of my knowledge, is unprecedented. The one and only government in the world that basically has an interest to sacrifice its own brothers and sisters And you can understand that there is an enormous growing anger among people in Gaza with Hamas.
Despite the narrative that is out there, is militarily the IDF have had great success in destroying Hamas. They've returned half of the hostages home, and they've secured their southern borders. There's still work to be done. It's still unclear whether Hamas will achieve victory or Israel will. In this war, based on somebody who used to teach strategy, Hamas's strategy for the war is only to survive. And if they survive the world, as in Hamas's top leadership, then they have achieved a massive victory for terrorism, for Iranian proxies, for the destruction of Israel, which is their grand strategy. For Israel to achieve a victory, it has to bring all the hostages home. It has to destroy Hamas as a military organization with the capability to hurt Israel and to conduct more October 7th, which is its stated goal. This is a unique war as well as a student of war where nobody believes the words of the other side. When Hamas says, my goal is that October 7th was just a warm-up, my ultimate goal is to continue to do October 7th attacks and to build power to destroy Hamas or destroy Israel and all the Jewish people. Interestingly, nobody ever listens to them what they say, except we do listen to them when they report civilian casualties daily down to this single digit, which again, I've never seen in a war. So where we also are is that war is a contest of will. It is a battle of the narratives. And Hamas's strategy for the war also includes not defeating the IDF, not even holding ground. It is only to cause the world to believe that the IDF is intentionally harming civilians and be forced to stop, but namely the United States and the UK and others saying, you have the right to defend yourself, but Israel, you must stop. That is Hamas's strategy, and the world has fallen into that strategy through a false narrative that anything being done, as in the destruction that occurs in urban warfare, in the history of urban warfare, that the Israel is somehow intentionally targeting civilians, intentionally causing destruction, intentionally causing humanitarian crisis, whether that's starvation or water, when actually the opposite is the truth, based on, from my research on the ground, understanding the complexities of urban combat, and it's actually the complete opposite. Israel has implemented more measures to prevent civilian harm, to prevent civilian casualties, to aid humanitarian crisis than any other military I've ever studied in the history of war, to include my own military, the United States and others.